What's up, guys? In today's video we are going to talk about house hacking. House hacking is when you buy a house with the intention of renting out part of it to cover as much of your mortgage as possible. So back in 2012 I ordered my first house here in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada, and I ordered it with a basement suite. And I'm going to walk you guys through the steps that were required to make this purchase. I'm going to talk about some of the things that worked well for me, and then I'm going to tell you what I could have done better, because there was definitely room for improvement. I'm pretty happy with it. I don't have any regrets, certainly, but looking back, there was definitely a few things that I could have done differently. All right, so I decided to buy a brand new house and have the basement suite constructed, so I would have some level of say in the development process. I worked with a builder that allowed me to provide some feedback, and it just made sure that everything was up to code in the municipality for which I'm going to be operating in, which was Edmonton. So I'm pretty happy with that turned out. All of the inspections were done prior to me ever moving in, and I ended up with a completely legal basement suite. That being said, there's a ton of other options out there. You definitely don't have to buy new. You could buy a house with an existing basement and convert it into a legal suite. Some of the big ticket items that you might have to do would be providing a heat source for your basement tenants, another hot water tank, a separate entrance, a separate kitchen. Not a lot of existing basement suites already have that stuff available, so being able to order it from a builder made sure everything was exactly the way I needed it for a tenant right out the gate. All right, so let's talk about the money that was involved with making the purchase. The rules in 2012 were a little bit more lenient than what they are in 2020. But that being said, they're still very much the same. This is my first house. It was going to be my principal residence. And because of that, I was allowed to put as little as 5% down. This is something I did. I think initially I put maybe like 7% down, and I signed up for the builder's mortgage. Over the next year and a little bit while the house was being constructed, I actually continued to save money. And when I finally did get possession of it in 2014, I was able to put more money down to lower my mortgage payment. And this is something to think about. If you are building, it gives you the option to save up a little bit more money from the time that you order and the time that you actually take possession of the unit. So that could work in your advantage. The other thing that I wanted to say is that you can still get away with 5%. The nice thing about house hacking is that you can use the rental income from the unit to help qualify for the mortgage. So if you have the savings, but you don't necessarily have the income to qualify for the type of property that you're interested in, having that rental income available to you is certainly going to help you qualify for a little bit more than what you would on your own. All right, so CMHC is the Canadian Mortgage Housing Corporation, and it is a government-backed service that basically regulates how residents qualify for their mortgages. And over the last 8 years or so since I've been buying real estate, generally the requirements have got a little bit more difficult every year. And one of the main things that you need to know is that if you're going to be putting less than 20% down on a property, it's going to be very difficult to qualify moving forward. In fact, at the time of making this video, the government has said that they're making it more difficult to qualify for a mortgage with less than 20% down, and they're actually increasing the minimum credit score from 600 up to 680. I don't know if that's a huge concern or not, because generally, if you're going to be qualifying for a mortgage, you're going to want to have a credit score of 700 or 720 anyways. So the other thing is that when you're qualifying for a mortgage, especially on a house with a basement suite, what you can do is actually use the rental income from that property to help qualify for the mortgage. So if you're buying a house and you're thinking that your mortgage payment is going to be like $2,000, what you can do is actually show what market rents are in the area and use that to help qualify for it. So if you can show that your basement suite would be rented out for $1,200 a month, your mortgage broker can help use that income to qualify for the mortgage. And I believe there's two different approaches that CMHC will recognize when doing this. And the first one is the gross rental amount, and the other way is the net rental amount. But anyways, I'll put the link in the description to the CMHC website, and there'll be plenty of information about that. All right, so house hacking was my first time being a landlord, renting out the basement suite on the house that I live in. And to be honest, it's gone pretty well. I live in a good neighborhood in Edmonton. I've bought some properties after this one in some less desirable neighborhoods and lower income neighborhoods, and I've had a whole string of issues with those properties. But to be truthful, the basement suite that I have on the house that I live in, generally it attracts a pretty decent type of person, and I haven't had any real concerns. I've been in the house for 6 years now, and I think I've had 4 different tenants over that time, with one of them staying for, I think it was like 3 or 4 years on her own. So it's gone really well. That being said, it was a good way to get your feet wet. I learned a lot about the Landlord and Tenancy Acts. It's good practice. If it's something that you're interested in, not only does it help you pay your mortgage every month, but it actually helps build a skill set that you can use in expanding your residential real estate portfolio. All right, so what would have I done differently? Honestly, I probably would have spent a little bit more time crunching the numbers and maybe built a little bit different floor plan. When it comes down to it, I've seen people that do house hacking, and just with 2 units, they end up getting basically all of their mortgage covered. And I know it's possible. It's a little bit more difficult to do. The way I did it, I get about half of my mortgage covered. My mortgage is about $2,000, and I rent my basement suite out for about $1,000 a month. So I'm not complaining by any means, but if I had to do it over again, or for you guys that might be interested in doing it, there's a few different things that you could do to get your entire mortgage covered. What I would do is make sure that the mix of bedrooms is maybe a little bit better on the rental suite. The other thing that you could do is, if you are okay with it, you could be the one that rents the basement. And for my house, it was 3 bedrooms upstairs and 1 in the basement. And I could have easily stayed down in the basement myself and then rented out the 3 bedrooms upstairs, and I would have covered basically my entire mortgage that way. So I always could do it, but now I've got furniture and I'm kind of committed to being upstairs. So on top of that, things have gone pretty well otherwise. So the fact that I don't completely break even on my house, it's it's not the worst thing in the world. So, as you may or may not know, one of the other benefits of having a rental unit is you certainly start to get some tax breaks. So, as I mentioned, I have 3 bedrooms upstairs and a 1-bedroom legal basement suite in my basement. And as soon as I had the rental income coming in, I was able to start showing some expenses on my tax return. I was operating as a sole proprietor at the time, which basically means that you just show the rental revenue minus your expenses on your tax return, and you don't have to worry about getting incorporated or anything like that. As I progressed and started to accumulate properties, I started to see benefits to doing that. But when you have one or even a small handful of properties, operating as a sole proprietor is just fine. So yeah, like as soon as you're able to start showing some expenses, I was able to claim some of my square footage for an office upstairs, some of my utility bills for the office, uh, computer. There's a bunch of different things. I'll probably do some videos just going over my tax return, and I would be very interested to see some of the creativity that other investors and other accountants out there might have had, because there's definitely a lot of different things that you can do. You just have a little bit more flexibility. So, if you're considering buying a property, and even if it's not your first property, take a look at house hacking. Do your due diligence. See what the market rates are in the area. See what requirements you would need to have to qualify for a mortgage. Uh, there's a lot of benefits that come along with it. I'm really glad that I did it. Like I said, I could have done a few things differently, but it's easy to look back. Hindsight's always 2020. So, anyways, thanks for taking the time to tune into the video. If you got any questions or comments, feel free to either leave them below. You can add me on Instagram. I'd appreciate it if you subscribed to the channel. Thanks again, and goodbye now.